Welcome to that 4x4 show. In this week's episode, I head off to Namibia and try and find a man with a Land Cruiser and some huge kitty cats. And we get an update on our Jeep Rubicon project. We get to drive a unique Land Rover 90, and we also drive the infamous Mokgatle 4x4 trail. But first, let's head off to Namibia. We recently tested the latest Toyota Prado 3-litre D4D VX at the Base 4 off-road track. There we discovered that it is really capable, if you work around some ground clearance limitations. Is this fancy new Prado, with its love-hate front-end design, more suited to shopping centre pavements, or is there still a reasonable amount of Land Cruiserness underneath all the glitz and glamour? That's why we're here in Windhoek, the capital of Namibia, and we're taking the 750,000 Rand Prado and we're heading off north towards the Kahuku land, one of the most harshest environments that you could ever find on God's planet. And it is now 20 minutes past 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's bitterly cold in Windhoek. Just bear in mind, in Namibia, they run on daylight saving, which means it's actually 20 past 7 back home. I want to go home. With the clock ticking and with around 800 kilometers to go, I left the early morning bustle of Windhoek behind and headed west towards the Atlantic Ocean. At Okahanya, I hooked a right towards Otjiwarongo. Distances between towns in Namibia are vast. This stretch between Okahanya and Otjiwarongo alone is almost 200 kilometers. Here the Prado's 400 Newton meters of torque, 5-speed auto shifter and standard cruise control really came to the party. Dial in a speed and the comfortable Toyota will just glide onwards effortlessly. On a road like this, pondering is quite easy to do. I couldn't help but wonder why Toyota has not fitted this engine gearbox combination to the Fortuner yet. Anyway, in Otjiwarongo, I made a phone call about the whereabouts of Dr. Flip Stander, probably the most famous line researcher in the world. I spoke to his right-hand girl, MC. I've just spoken to MC and she's trying to help us locate Dr. Flip Stander, the man who does the research on the desert lions in the Kahuku land. And we've still got some way to go. As you can see, we need to go on to Kamanyap via Otju, and then from there on to Sesfontein, and then try and find Philip. Do you think it's mission impossible? I don't think so. Still on a tight schedule, I aimed north again, to the town of Otju. And in Otju, well, sometimes a man's just got to do what a man's got to do, especially if there's an award-winning butchery in the game. So we just stopped here in Otju at the Delaray meat market, got myself some chops, some wors, some steak, and of course, you don't come to Namibia and not buy yourself biltong and droewors. I mean, come on, get real. Armed with at least 3 cows worth of droewors and biltong, I glided on to the little town of Kamanyap, effortlessly. Arriving in Kamanyap, it was time to bid farewell to the beautiful tar roads. So you know what the sign means? Well, you're supposed to know, because this is where the tar road ends and the gravel road starts, and this is where our adventure really starts. 230 kilometers to go still to Sesfontein, and it's gravel road. Up until now, the Prado's been exceptional on tar. What's it going to be like on gravel? And in the serious stuff as well. It was time to lock the center differential for a 50-50 power distribution between the front and rear axles. It just makes the whole rig more stable on Namibia's finest dirt roads. And I must say, as far as dirt road handling goes, the Prado certainly plays the solid part, especially if you deflate the tires to around 1.5 bar. Despite a slightly dusty cabin and some game viewing on this main road, we managed to make good time. And before I could say, here kitty kitty, I rolled into the one stop in Palmbach for a last refuel of the Prado's 150-litre diesel tank. Thankfully, the Prado can drink 500 ppm diesel, because here at Palmbach, 50 ppm diesel is just a rumor. We've just done about 130 kilometers on gravel. Here we are at Palmbach refueling, and we've still got about another 130 kilometers to go. And our aim tonight is to find Dr. Flip Stander. I think we should make it before sunset. So, apparently still on schedule, we left the one stop and headed for Sesfontein, the last town before we could really get into the wild stuff. The
Prado and I soon dispatched the settlement and faced the conundrum. I could head straight down the supposedly dry Hoornip River, all the way to Ampspoort Gorge, our supposed rendezvous point with the doctor. But it was just me, myself and I. If I got stuck in that river. So I took option B, a detour around the river, which should be a safer bet. However, this road, as beautiful as the scenery was, soon turned from okay to bad to worse, reducing the average speed drastically.
As we travel further north, progressively the road gets worse and worse and worse and worse as we go. And so far the Prado has taken everything that we've thrown at her absolutely in the stride. No sweat. I'm actually really impressed.
The Tracks for Africa GPS software eventually guided the Prado to the Hoornip River, but the slow-going detour and the soft sand was costing bags of time, as hours and not minutes ticked by, and the sun was off to bed, and I still had no idea where Dr. Flip's thunder was.
Well, here we are. I've been driving in this riverbed for hours and hours and hours on end, thick sand. Here and there's traces of desert elephants and so on. I don't know how far it's still to go. The sun is officially set. It's now starting to get dark. So I don't know, maybe I'll end up camping somewhere along this riverbed tonight before I can find Philip's thunder.
So on I went, driving west in the Hoornip. It was now getting dark, and any hopes of finding Flip and his Land Cruiser faded with the last rays of the sun. Just to remind me that I was now in one of the most inhospitable places on earth, I came across a puff adder. And then I came across some desert elephants. This was not looking good at all. But then, in the dark of night, in the distance, was that a light? Yes, it was. And it was a Land Cruiser light.
Sure, Dr. Thunder, I presume.
Great. Nice to see you out here.
Eventually. Rumor has it that the Mokgatle 4x4 trail near Brits is quite a humdinger. Is this true or not? Well, we headed off to go and find out for ourselves.
The Mokgatle 4x4 trail in the Northwest Province is indeed said to be one of South Africa's 3 terror trails. That's simply because there are a few obstacles here that will indeed strike fear into any mortal being's soul. The tracks range from rocks to sand to some serious sandy ruts that will test even the most experienced. There are escape routes around the obstacles though, so there is always the option to skip one if you are worried about mortal damage to yourself or your vehicle. But the infamous Koerse Klip is Mokgatle's coup d'etat. This massive boulder presents a huge challenge for drivers. Here, you have to slowly edge onto the seemingly impossible steep rock, and then head up with just enough momentum to get up and over an axle twister halfway up this rock. The venue also has accommodation options available, as well as a licensed bar, fishing, bird watching and mountain biking. Go to our Facebook page for more information on the Mokgatle 4x4 trail.
It's time for an update on our Rubicon project, and this Rubicon is fast turning into a Ruby truck.
The Jeep Wrangler Rubicon V6, already a formidable 4x4 in stock standard guise, is now fast taking shape as one spectacular 4x4. Remember how the men from 4-wheel drive trucking company cut a perfectly good TJM Wrangler bar to pieces? Well, here's the result. One mean mother of a custom bull bar with a top bar that will not only calm any aggressive taxi driver right down, but is also there to prevent the short Jeep from rolling head over heels on an extreme 4x4 track. A heavy-duty top-mount 4-wheel drive trucking winch has also been added to the bar. Another major upgrade is the suspension. This Arctic truck system adds 50mm to the Jeep's already formidable clearance. The coil and shock absorber upgrade should also allow for even more wheel articulation in a tough off-road environment. Further bolstering the Jeep's off-road prowess are the 35-inch Mickey Thompson tires, fitted on those awesome new Mickey T rims. Next, a fancy new front-runner aluminium roof rack was fitted, along with a myriad of accessories. This is quite a complicated business, as the Jeep's removable hardtop has to be removed first, and then the whole contraption comes together in one solid package. The accessories include jerry cans for fuel, which is rather important as there is no space for an auxiliary fuel tank in this Jeep, and the V6 engine she likes to drink a lot. An LED light bar has also been added to the front runner rack, which is just the ticket if you plan to drive off-road in the dark, or if you're traveling in Africa at night.
So while we're on the subject of project cars, what do you do if your brand new Land Rover 90 rolls and the insurance company in all their wisdom decides to write it off? I'll tell you what, you take it to Gary Schwemmer, because that is a man with a plan.
It's cool, it's capable, and oh boy, it's a whole lot of fun. This is Gary Schwemmer's Land Rover 90 project vehicle.
Well, this is one of the best parts of my job, is physically testing and putting the car through its paces. This is our good old Land Rover Defender. We've just completed this project. It's one of a kind. How the whole project came about, we got hold of a Land Rover Centurion and we've been nagging them for a car. And eventually one day I got a phone call from Chart and Craig and they said, come have a look. And we went through and we saw this green Land Rover, and first I thought the color's not great, but I said, let's do it.
Yes sirree, this Landy is all about fun and off-road ability too. Gary explains what went down here.
Well, firstly, we started off, we wanted to give it that Arctic truck look. So we cut away the fenders, did a bit of body work. We manufactured the new wheel arches that are much bigger, much wider to accommodate these chunky 35-inch Mickey Thompson tires and rims, running 17 inches by 10. And then from there we fitted this fancy TJM bull bar, TJM plasma winch, and then we also fit a set of CB's 8-inch spotlights. And our main structure was, I didn't want the roof. So we cut the roof off and I made this whole pipe frame. We did it very nicely. We actually measured the Land Rover's body shape so that it exactly, the rounded corners at the top, the same length, that everything was still in proportion. We wanted the same angle in the front as the front windscreen. And I think it really turned out nicely. We also fitted a TJM awning. We made these nice brush bars on the side. These come from Alucab, as well as the bonnet box. Inside here we can store wood and whatever else we want to store. Well, here on the rear we've got the original Land Rover gas bottle holder from Frontrunner. It supports the gas bottle. We painted the gas bottle as well. As you can see, all the details that I mentioned, all in yellow. The yellow jerry can, the yellow spade. There's a fog light at the back for if we're riding in mist. We've also got a work light, a Hello work light LED fitted to the back. And then we mounted the high lift jack at the bottom in its original position.
But the proof of the pudding is in the eating, they say. So, let's have a meal then. With the upgraded TJM suspension, the big Mickey T tires and the Land Rover's standard traction control system, it is pretty much unstoppable on Rhino Park's trading track. In fact, it hardly gets a workout here as it sails up, over and down everything. So suffice to say that this is one awesome toy. However, there is one slight challenge here. Because there's no roof or windows, driving from Pretoria to Cape Town could turn into a bit of a character test. Not that Gary minds at all.
Look, you've got to have short hair.
So picture this. You're in arguably one of the most beautiful places on God's earth. The Kahuku Veld, or Kahuku Land as it's often called as well. And we're totally off the beaten path, trying to find the desert lions.
It was the second day of the Namibian adventure. After finally meeting up with Dr. Flip Stander the previous evening in the dark, I camped next to a rock, amongst some other rocks. I was supposed to meet up with Dr. Flip in the Hoornip River, where those desert ellies were already stirring. But you can't start a day like this without a cup of coffee, an Omar Rusk, and a bit of reflection.
What a way to wake up. Most awesome scenery. So I found Dr. Stander last night. And we're supposed to meet up a little bit later, and then we're going to go in search of the big kitty cats.
But time waits for no man, and Dr. Flip and I were going to find some desert lions. Back in the dry Hoornip River, I soon came across a herd of the infamous desert elephants. These elephants have a reputation for not liking humans very much, and one particularly grumpy ellie soon does their reputation proud. The wildlife kept on coming. A giraffe, more giraffe, springbuck. It really is hard to imagine that this is actually a desert. And then on the horizon, another vision of Dr. Flip's custom Land Cruiser Bucky. After saying our hellos, we headed off to a nearby watering hole.
What's our plan of action for today?
Well, what I'd like to do, there are a bunch of lions called the Floodplain Pride, and amongst them there are 5 young males that we call the 5 Musketeers. And I've got satellite collars on them.
Okay.
So I'd like to go and find them and just see what condition they are in. And they're a bit further up in the mountains here, and it's going to be quite a mission. I'm not quite sure exactly where they're lying, but there are no tracks, so we're going to have to find our way through the mountains, and I hope we can go and find them and have a look at them.
Awesome, I'm looking forward to it.
And so it started. Dr. Flip leading the Toyota convoy, tracking the pride of lions via their GPS collars. It started off easy enough on a Tweespoor sand track, but then we had to turn off the beaten track. I only had the tracks of Dr. Flip's Land Cruiser to follow. Places it got quite rough, rocks, and more rocks. And in places, a road of sorts had to be built. This is kind of what the Land Cruiser Bucky was designed to do. The fancy Prado? Problem was, the track could get much worse depending on the mood of the lions. But then, Dr. Flip called a halt over the radio.
We're totally off the beaten path. This is not a road. This is in one of the valleys, one of the drainage valleys. And Dr. Flip's gone ahead. Apparently the lions were in this area and they've moved, so he's going to go and find higher ground where he can use the tracking system that he has and see if he can pick up where the lions have gone. Because according to him, they go over these mountains like it's nothing. So we got to try and find these kitty cats. Kitty, 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 kitty.
Soon Dr. Stander called on the radio. I could head up the track. The lions had moved on and we had some catching up to do. I soon found him on a rock looking for his lions. And then, disaster. The leading cruiser had picked up a massive sidewall puncture. Dr. Flip is clearly well versed in the practice of fixing tires, and he quickly had the massive hole plugged. After driving a few more kilometers, Dr. Flip stopped the convoy with news.
They'd moved a long way since early this morning, so
Yeah.
we went a huge roundabout through the mountains, and we had to basically cut our way through, and they essentially heading back to almost where we started off. But they were moving at the same time as we were driving. And hopefully we will still find them. They're about 2 kilometers ahead.
Okay.
But it's quite a clear view now. But they can easily lie in a little valley in a gully that we won't be able to access. So let's hope that they are in a good place.
My common sense says to me they'll probably try and find something that's shady, more like down into the riverbed
They'll
itself.
definitely find
trees or something.
an overhang, rock overhang, or some trees or bushes,
Okay.
and then we just hope that it's in an accessible area.
The good news was that we were close. The bad news was that Dr. Flip said, because these lions are so wild, they will bolt if they feel threatened in any way. And they also don't like the sound of diesel engines or the look of white vehicles. Oh dear.
Okay, apparently we're very close to the lions, so
Tot waar ek nou gestaan het. Voor jy begin afgaan. En dan kan jy net daar stop. Dan roep ek nou weer vir julle. Sodat julle alles kan sien.
okay, so it looks like we might have found them. We've now been told to move slightly forward, and then he'll call us, and we should be able to see everything from up here. But he just wants to go and check where the lions are, make sure that they're calm, and then we'll be able to move closer. So it's all thumbs. I want to see the kitty cat.
Slowly, following every instruction from Dr. Flip, who knows these lions better than anyone, we edged forward. Closer to the tree he said they were lying under. We couldn't see anything, but then something popped its head up, and then another head popped up, curiously. Then a lion got up, walked 2 meters and flopped down again in the shade. We had found them. We had actually found them. It was an amazing moment, so we waited around for an hour in the hope that the lions would start moving. Then we waited another hour.
So which one shall I read first?
And another hour. But the big cats were not going anywhere. With the light fading, we bid the lions farewell and headed out back in the direction of Sesfontein. We still wanted to know more about Dr. Flip Stander's unique Land Cruiser before he slipped off into the night, tracking his lions. With the light fading fast and with Dr. Flip Stander clearly keen to get to work, we said our farewells in the Hoornip River. Off we went in search of his lions, his desert lions. What a man, what a cruiser, what a project, what awesome lions.
Now that was an adventure, and one that will probably be with me for a very, very, very long time. Next week, Mr. T heads off to the Northern Cape and finds out what a roro is. Or is it a roro? And that's not something you eat. In the meantime, we'll see you next week, guys.